cool to
I
share?
see where my ranking is, Andrew.
Oh my
No,
goodness, he's on his phone no less, so you know he's not presenting.
no, I don't have anything today.
Okay. No, I go to Leron, and then if I don't hear from Leron, I go to Amanda. So I have my order. All right. Well, good to see everybody. Let me share out my screen and we'll get on into it. By the way, Mr. Harlam, is it okay if I have you in here, but could we start off with you and just see how I had you in here, Gary, to see if there's any updates on last week? Thanks again for sharing that with us. Any news with them and
yeah, they're back online. What do you expect? Yeah. Hey, listen, and this is after I was gonna, make a comment that we're still stuck with you today, but now I feel bad saying that. Yeah. So last week,
so you all know this is 25 years of knowing one another. This is what you get.
Hey, listen, you open the door. Yeah. So for those who didn't hear the wonderful news, one of our clients had an incident last week. It appears now retrospectively somebody compromised a VPN account in the FortiGate, which evidently their MFA had gotten disabled. Interestingly enough, a month earlier, one of the users had a BEC, which was suspect, but turns out we believe is 100% unrelated to this. But we did a little research, or the SaaS team did some research and said, yeah, as soon as the email rule was created, they saw it, killed it, and saw failed login attempts after that, but no other action. So we do believe, and believe it's been validated that that's unrelated, but ultimately, symptomatically, we started getting alerts overnight, Wednesday night into Thursday morning, that Webroot was being uninstalled from their devices. And an hour later, we got the call that people were seeing odd stuff on the server. Interestingly, none of the workstations were impacted other than Webroot being uninstalled. The server was cryptoed. We have been in constant communication with IronScale, who is their insurance company brought in to do the forensics. That's still ongoing a little bit, but ultimately we backed up, or we archived a copy of the VHD for their analysis. And by the end of the day on Thursday, we had rebuilt the hypervisor, rebuilt the firewall just to eliminate any traces of anything in there. There were issues that we wanted to resolve in the firewall anyway, and started restoring the server. By the end of the day Friday, we were back online with the server in isolation mode. They deployed SentinelOne because there was no EDR in the environment. They wanted to use their portal so they could keep an eye on it. And when you're paying $2,500 a month for their service, let them do all the work. But forgetting the fact that $2,500 a month for 39 endpoints was outrageous, but not coming out of my pocket.
Yeah, just clarification, was it the forensic team deploying it? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. They wanted their version. Yeah. And we're still going back and forth now because for whatever reason, the Axiom backup is not yet communicating properly. Some files got quarantined where they didn't under actually they weren't, never mind. Either way, so they've been going through the logs. What we've found is the threat actor deployed Altra with Splashtop for persistence And, even when we restored the server, we could still see a little bit of a remnant there because they had already entered the environment prior to the date that we restored from. And, we cut off their IP address, cut off the process, and the forensics team was happy with that, said, yep, no, we're comfortable, everything else is clean. And, but, by Tuesday morning, everybody had rotated all their passwords for their devices for Office 365, reset MFA, reset their Forti tokens, and they're back up and running. The forensics team is still doing some analysis. Their expectation is they're going to contact the threat actor to kind of play the game of, well, what do you really have to prove that they exfiltrated any data? They claim they did. But they didn't have a lot of time, but there's also not a lot of, based on the type of organization, there's not a lot of sensitive data that they had access to.
Any idea, Gary, what this cost the customer?
I haven't seen the final thing. Well, okay. So the estimate when I talked to the director yesterday, this is like a quasi nonprofit, but I want to say it was somewhere between 30 and 40 grand. They actually have a pretty low deductible. The demand, the ransom demand was 80 grand.
So 40 grand for a nonprofit with 39 endpoints, 1,000 an endpoint, basically.
Yep.
And that's with insurance or without insurance?
No, they have insurance with a moderately low deductible. So,
okay.
And by the way, just for the sake of others, one of the things that we learned that we will never make this mistake again, when we were talking to the insurance company about our services, which are outside of the covered services with our contract, any incident is on by the hour. We used our project rate of $150 an hour. And he's like, yeah, we were expecting two and a quarter, which is their typical rate. And the justification is, again, we dropped everything for a couple of our engineers for 2 days or 2.5 days to do it. And yeah, next time we will be charging 2 and a quarter for that emergency response. Ultimately, we left money on the table.
Gary, I applaud you, man. I mean, considering the lack of, security they were unwilling to let you do, you did a pretty damn good job. I mean, my question is, patient zero, you said it was the VPN where they believe. So yeah. Do they know how MFA was disabled, Gary? And was the VPN, was FortiGate patched properly?
Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't. Yeah.
There was, when we set up LDAP a while ago, there was a problem with usernames and uppercase and mixed case. And what we found at one point which when I said we needed to rebuild the box, fell through the cracks a little bit, but evidently the FortiGates are not good about handling these usernames. And we suspect that there were still phantom IDs left behind from when we redid the LDAP sync. Because, when we found that people had a problem with uppercase and lowercase, and we recreated, because the username is still the same, but we were under the impression everybody was using MFA, and it had come out recently that some people were still able to log in without it.
Got it.
So it's almost like it's a dual account thing, but it doesn't show up in the user list.
Interesting. I would say this is, you just have to wonder, Gary, and this is not there's no fault here. You just have to wonder, though, like as a threat actor, right?
Yep.
With automation and things like let's just take Shodan. It's like it's like going to the casino, right? Let's go find Fortinet, anything that's Fortinet, internet facing Fortinet, and let's go to the craps table and see what is there disabled MFA? Has the patch, like as we talk about often on this call with the Verizon data breach report, 54% of, edge devices weren't patched after 3-4 months, so it's, I just would caution everybody that, if you've got devices that are constantly under attack, like Avanti, Fortinet, Sonic walls, just
Yeah.
be
There's
aware.
one other thing that came out in their audit,
What's that?
which I thought was interesting, that we have to fix today. But back in last July, one of their other users had another BEC where, and I haven't gone back to look at the ticket because I found this out late in the day yesterday, but evidently during the compromise, an app was deployed and is still there that has been under the radar. So it just goes back to the, go back and audit and validate, making sure that, you disable end user, the ability for an end user to just deploy apps in their box, and make sure that there are, we are aware of all the apps that are running and that they're approved.
Yeah.
So we have that as an initiative now to go back and audit all of our environments just to make sure.
Gary, was Altera picked up at all?
In what regard?
At all that was alerted of an app being installed.
No,
Yeah.
because it's on the server. They're running webroot on the server. That's it.
But yeah, well, it's just interesting. Again, I'm just bringing up living off the land techniques.
Yeah,
right?
we're hey, listen, we weren't running anything like, we weren't running Threat Locker, we weren't running SentinelOne on the server. Now, SentinelOne may not have complained about Altera. Threat Locker for sure would have.
Yeah, but again, so everybody knows, you didn't explain this. They flat out rejected your security, your security recommendations multiple times.
Correct.
Yeah.
So now they're spending potentially $40,000 on an insurance claim, and it would cost them a lot less than that a year if they had taken your security precautions.
Hey, listen, we've all had these conversations.
Yep.
And we can all say we told you so, but she recognizes that her expenses are going to go up. She's got no choice now.
Got to write another grant.
Yep.
May I add something to this, if I may? This is Peter Simon. I don't know if you remember the old Woody Woodpecker cartoons. If Woody had gone right to the police, none of this would have ever happened. And I'm a big fan of passwordless. It's inexpensive and it can mitigate a lot of these problems. You're muted, by the way, Gary.
I'm sorry. Somebody was asking me a question in the background. I didn't hear you comment.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, so I was saying if they had been using passwordless, that can mitigate a lot of the problems, and it's not as expensive or as complicated as people seem to think it is.
Yeah, there are lots of ways that some of these problems can be avoided. But yeah, we have these conversations with every client all the time, and many of our customers, are on board, and there are others people say, I'm going to roll the dice, because ultimately that's what they're doing.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for sharing. These are phenomenal, learning, just the little takeaways that you learned that you won't do again. And, really appreciate you always sharing this kind of stuff, and all of you. Okay. Wins of the week. Anyone have some stuff to share?
I will just say it's comforting knowing that the cloud environment continues to drive more and more customers there, and having SaaS alerts monitor, respond, and actually use the MSA piece adds tremendous comfort and value to our standing within our company and the posture that we can take with our customers.
Yeah. By the way, Andy, that comment brings up one interesting thing that the director made in one of the initial conversations. Well, does this mean we should move to the cloud? And obviously our conversation is no, moving to the cloud isn't going to make you more secure. It's just different. But people have this perception that it's better, for whatever reason. So yeah. We've got to do a better job of educating them.
Yeah. it's the narrative of the day, right, Gar? It's the,
Yeah.
you know, it's a narrative.
And Gary, I don't know that we can educate people who don't see value in the security aspect of it. They may
Agreed.
think, you know, hey, I got an old car. Why do I need an alarm on it? Right?
Yeah.
That's the other part. Is I got to realize, hey, this is not a good customer for me. Got to find somebody else.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, at the end of the day, we've also got to take it on ourselves to try to speak their language. A lot of times we're not speaking business language. Not saying in this case you didn't. I'm just saying that's all the other thing to keep in mind. Often we have to align with what matters to them, and technology often doesn't, right? Versus, you know, business operations, KPIs, etc.
May I add something to that, by the way, Andrew? You're speaking the business language as opposed to speaking geek speak, and we're learning to talk C speak. How many of you have heard about the breach, the ransomware attack that disrupted UNFI, UNFI, or whatever you want to pronounce it, the supplier for Whole Foods? I'm not sure if you
Yeah,
discussed that.
the organic. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, and I was at an event last week in Princeton, and one of the women sitting at the table saying she hasn't been paid in 3 months because her client, a real estate management company, was hit by a ransomware attack, and luckily they provide building maintenance services. It's not the only client, or it's not their largest client that they depend on. So the question comes down to is, if your client was hit, can your business survive? Or if your supplier was hit, your top 3 suppliers were hit, can you continue to operate your business? So it's about shifting the language to, like you say, speaking the business speak that they understand.
Yeah, yeah, we've absolutely, we haven't seen you on in a while, and it's welcome back, Peter. We've been for the
Thank you.
last 5 to 6 weeks, we've been talking about supply chain and third party incidents. That was one of them about 2 weeks ago we brought up. So, well, good. Tina, any bulletin board stories for us this week, or nothing fun, nothing fun. Okay. All right. Amanda, can I hand it to you for the stale device report?
Yes. So what I'm going to show you guys is a report. It is on our development environment. It will be released probably in the next week. It is just going through initial testing now. I am in the dev environment, so I don't have a ton of fun data to show you guys, but this report, the intention is to show you devices that have not logged any activity for 90 days. So as long as you're using Unify and you have your devices mapped and there's anything stale that you want to go through and clean up, you'll be able to run this report and see what's the product, see what the device is, see who the user was the last time they logged in, and the date associated with that last login. Like I said, it's on dev, so you can see some of my dates aren't 90 days old, but that is the intention of the report. And you can also schedule this or export it to CSV or PDF, however you want to handle it.
That's
Yes,
great.
Andy.
Question, can we get the Entra ID value as well so that it's absolutely unique? Because this could be across customers, and there could be, for example, 2 Win11 computers at 2 different customers, and chasing that down would, or include a customer. This is only by organization, is that right? Or is it all organizations as well?
No, this is just by organization.
Okay.
But I can certainly see if the Entra is a field that we can add here.
It'd be interesting to know if this value is coming from Microsoft or from the RMM. That would also be helpful, I believe, because it might be valid in Microsoft, but not in the RMM or vice versa.
Yeah,
And
Adam, are you still here? Do you know?
I am here. When you say what data point are you asking if it's
so
valid?
last activity date, is that coming from Entra ID or is
No.
it coming from
So
RMM?
that's coming from the product that's referenced. So if you look on the left-hand side, it says Project Ninja 1. It could say Datto EDR, it could say Datto RMM.
Okay.
It's just whatever the field that we got from that particular product says the last time they saw it.
Okay, so now let's assume for a moment that they're still using the device, but it's not under Ninja One, but it's in Entra ID. Can we also have an Entra ID last activity?
Well, you would see the Microsoft device because we will be releasing the Microsoft devices piece here pretty soon. So you would see a Microsoft device that's called Laptop 123. You'd see a Ninja device called Laptop 123. And then you would see that one has it checking in recently where the other one does not.
So this stale device report only relates to the RMM at this point.
It would relate to any device that's inside Unify that you have connected. So whatever products are supported today and will be supported in the future will be listed in this list.
Okay. Thank you.
So we would actually be able to cross-reference this report against devices that aren't in the RMM through the respond rules. Is that correct?
You'll have to ask
To
that
give us
again.
that same
Maybe
to give us that same data element that we just talked about.
I don't know that Respond would play into that for that use case. Maybe explain more in your thought.
Well, if there's activity and we have Unify turned on with respond rules, and there's activity on the device, would it with a respond rule that would say an unauthorized device, correct?
The data that's in here is not really relevant, and unless Amanda knows better on the Respond side, to Respond. This is just purely about the last check-in date of the agent. So for
Yeah.
instance, if you go to the RMM, it'll say like, I saw this laptop 2 days ago. And so we're taking that data from the RMM or whatever product it is and putting it in the date field of the last activity. It's not necessarily the last activity that occurred on that device. So it's not saying that Adam on laptop 123 logged into Microsoft and did something. This is the last time that the device's agent checked in with whatever software it is.
Okay.
Right, and the respond rules right now, those filters are currently available more for like the mapped, not that it's stale.
I have another question, if I may.
Okay.
So this relates to stale devices, which potentially means that they are out of compliance, haven't been patched, any number of things. Is there a report, either present or coming, that would allow us to tie this to known policy issues, either through Intune or through the RMM, to say these are not only stale, but they're out of compliance?
We do not have anything planned for that right now. That's not a data source that I have to do any reporting on. I think that's kind of the intention of this report is for you guys to see what's stale and then decide what to do about it.
Yeah, I'm trying to drill down that if we are entertaining this level of detail, being able to set alerts around compliance becomes very helpful from a, this is where I see this stale device report taking me next, is how do I make sure that the devices are in policy either at the RMM level or at the Intune level?
Yeah, like I said, so this report will be available for scheduling. So whatever frequency you do, you could export the report on that frequency to confirm if it's in or out of whatever you're checking for.
Yeah, so the reason why I thought this report was interesting, and the way that I think I would use it is just, hey, I've got agents deployed all over the world in 5 different RMM tools or AVs or EDRs or Microsoft or whatever. And let me just make sure that they're all actively monitoring and doing the things that I expect versus being surprised later that the EDR agent hadn't checked in 3 weeks, even though it's active and online on all the other products.
So Adam, that's really interesting. So like to get like, if I'm hearing you correctly, and I'm just hoping I did, EDR got disabled as an example, right? And maybe it's not checking in that way, and now it's not checking in at all.
Correct. Even though it's still checking in the RMM and in being used in Microsoft, we're just trying to identify gaps in the coverage that you all have and all of the different agents and products that you're expecting to see it there.
And what you're hearing me ask is tying this to Microsoft around the fact that this is SaaS alerts and how we link that cloud link. In other words, is it present in the and frequently visit, or I should say less than 90 days, it's been in Microsoft, but not in the RMM. That would be a real alert for me. Does that make sense? In other words, I think it's offline, but it's really being used.
Uh-huh. So let me restate. I think you're saying I saw activity on laptop 123 with this Entra device ID, but I'm not seeing an agent inside these other products.
Correct.
Okay, that's interesting. We'll have to give that, Amanda and I, we should take that offline and see if we can come together with something that's useful.
So Eric had a comment. I was seeing if he had a mic, it looks like he would go for more to his RMN for more data enrichment. So Eric, can you chat or?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha, bud. How are you?
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't expect SaaS alerts to have all this information. And if this report is great, but yeah, I would, with this report, then go to whatever product is listed in this report to get that detail. I guess I wouldn't expect SaaS alerts to have that.
Yeah, that was kind of my vision of how this worked. But, you know, Andy, you drop bombs on a regular basis that make me think about things and how we can be the source of truth for a lot of things. So,
Well, I'm just saying
I
you're
like the idea.
cloud-based. Microsoft's becoming more and more that source of truth when it comes to Active Directory or Entra ID. And so I'm now thinking in those ways. Where the RMM used to be the source of truth, I'm beginning to think it's just a tool at this point, and something else is becoming that source, be it Google or Microsoft.
Okay. Amanda, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you so much, as always. All right, let me go back here. All right. So I got a few things for everybody, as always. The Week in Cyber. Some you remember these? I don't know if you guys remember getting these types of phishing scams with the voice attachment. So just wanted to share that this seems to be back in vogue. I don't know if any of you have gotten these. Obviously, I didn't go into my full transcript to figure out what was in there and what goodies they would have me click on, or what might potential get pulled down. But these are back. There's a few other things I really want to kind of go over. This is one where we've talked about this before, but I wanted to ask you all a few questions about it. This is a new one, a new but old one. And that new but old one is enticing gamers to, get cheat codes and things like that. I'm not a big gamer, I've never really been a gamer. But for those that do, can you guys relate to this kind of ruse, first off? And please chime in because this is not my thing. But oftentimes tech people are gamers. Is that fair to say, you all? And again, I need some participation here. It can't all be one way. Enrique, no, right? So, so this is what's dangerous about this, and why I wanted to bring it to your attention for both your MSP and your customers, right? Number one, do your engineers ever, are there policies? Do you guys block things where they might decide to do something on the network, to take a break, to do something, to get their mind, hey, I'm going to just take a break and do something? Well, this particular one, this was quite troubling in that literally Checkpoint tested, it evaded every single AV engine. So that's one thing that's pretty staggering to think about. And this info stealer is pretty aggressive. The other thing that I want to point out about this is, again, if you allowed this or your clients allowed this, when I say it's an aggressive info stealer, take a look at what it does. I mean, first of all, your AVs aren't going to, your antiviruses, your EDRs aren't going to pick it up. And then it goes after Discord. You know, a lot of our engineers have Discord credentials and things of that nature. Browser, you know, again, hopefully no one's storing their information in browser, but we have to probably think about our clients. And then, you know, here's, you know, going after VPN. So just wanted to get your all thoughts on that. First off, from a policy perspective, internally, do you guys have strict policies on allowing or not allowing gaming? And what about your clients? Is this something you ever talk to them about?
Yeah, we don't, that's typically not something that's allowed in our office or even in our clients.
So how do you shut it down in a client?
Well, I put in the chat, I think gaming is browser-based in this case. And so we're starting to use tools that will block specific activities. Only approved activities can take place, if that makes sense.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that, Andy. Any others, like, thoughts on this?
Is this strictly web-based you're talking about?
It doesn't say that.
Downloading stuff? Okay.
By the way, it doesn't say it's strictly web-based at all in here, you know.
We block install of anything. So I mean, in that sense, but if they were doing it browser-based and they were using a VPN through the browser, then I don't know, would the traditional filtering stop that?
It's a good question. It's a good question, especially if it was already installed. You know, is it going to block the traffic? You know,
I would imagine DNS filtering would prevent the browser side games and destinations from being used.
And
But
ThreatLocker would stop the installs.
yeah, it would stop the other piece. Yeah. And just to kind of plus one, Andrew, when I ran my MSP, it's been about 5 years now. We loved to brag that we allowed our techs to play games during their break time to kind of, you know, just reconnect and drop some steam. So this is an interesting attack for sure.
that's why I brought it up, Adam. Really, that was the reason. Because, you know, a lot of the techs are gamers, which was really my reason for bringing this up. So
Yeah, I
okay.
could see this being very effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it has been. If you read the article, it's been incredibly effective. They've done a lot of damage very quickly with this. Thanks for sharing that, Jason. Okay. You guys. I'm sorry.
Background noise.
Okay.
You need someone to mute them.
Yeah, who can Anthony? Who can you
He's
mute?
not. Yeah, it was Enrique. We shut him up.
Okay,
Oh
perfect.
boy.
Oh, all right. We'll have to give Enrique some garbage later. All right. So, do you guys remember the fun we had last week? Did you know what happened? Did
I
you
didn't
guys
hear about it, Andrew. What's this about?
Yeah, of course, Adam. Nothing about that. Hey, I'm sensing some sarcasm.
5 hours?
What's that?
I said it was down for 5 hours?
Yeah, it was brutal. I mean, I don't know if like this and this, I don't know, like I'm surprised what it didn't mention was, you know, they mentioned, you know, various services, and they also mentioned in this next piece here, Cloudflare, but the I'm suspecting Zoom was on uh, uh, GCP because my Zoom was absolutely crashed.
This really plays out as you expand. You have to have multiple cloud providers because you can't rely on just one.
Well, I mean, that's the point here, Andy, is like, it's a rhetorical question, you know, like what's the level of, you know, like who's your client? This gets back into what Peter and I were kind of bantering with on the business side of things. Like how critical you know, are they running anything, you know, that would be related to GCP? And even if you look here, you know, Cloudflare got taken down by this. So this had rippling effects. And, you know, do you have clients that, you know, have zero tolerance for, you know, disruption for something like this to happen? It's just an interesting kind of, we live in a world now that's, we're dealing with these more catastrophic things where we have to kind of ask, which clients, was this majorly impactful for, or was it, or could it have been if it was, a Microsoft situation versus Google. So we used to have a gentleman on here, I forget his name, who's very
Google related, the guy
Google
who did the
centric.
educational stuff.
Yes, yes, you remember him, Andy. It would have
I
been
do.
interesting to hear his take on this.
How that impacted schools. This is it's a big deal.
Yeah, it
I was
was.
on vacation and I didn't even notice this.
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
a question.
Yes, please.
Could I don't know if it's anywhere relevant. You said Thursday. Could geostorms affect like the connections possibly? Or I know Thursday there was like a
This,
geostorm
I
happening.
mean, geostorms could absolutely mess traffic up. This particular outage was related to a policy that Google deployed worldwide on accident that was invalid and effectively stopped all API connections from the outside in for most of their services. Authentication being the one that really hurt the most, because when you talk about multi-cloud, it's really hard to do multi-cloud with authentication services because somewhere needs to be your source of truth.
Yeah.
That's a great question, Hannah. Like, wasn't it, Adam, like some like a null? I'm sorry, Alex. Wasn't there a null value that shouldn't have been there or something like that, if I read correctly?
Yeah, it was a corrupted policy with a null value in it, and then their systems didn't handle that right, which effectively cascaded the issue across all of their policy engines and all of the API connections, and it was a bad day for everyone.
Adam, probably a silly question and easy to ask as the Monday morning quarterback, but shouldn't there have been some testing before changing a policy, or?
Yeah, that was part of their root cause analysis. If you look it up, their detailed report is pretty good. And anytime I see a major cloud provider go down like that, I always like to read their RCA and see what can be learned from it. And they called out 4 or 5 places where they were deficient and where things happened that they shouldn't have, and how they'll be correcting it in the future.
Got it. Got it. Almost like when we had the CrowdStrike incident, right? How they now deploy their updates and things like that. Okay, well, let's come back to this fun one. Are you guys getting more of these? Anybody?
Oh yeah, my customer did, but it was for a billing of 365 and it was our bullfish training them. So it's not quite the same.
Well, these are becoming rampant. So much so there's an article that I'm going to share with you on it. I'm getting these fairly regularly. Again, you wonder for the non-trained user what happens. I know we are all sitting here saying, let's go ahead and do it. And, three guys. Yeah, Ron, anything happen, or did they just notify you?
Yeah, they just forwarded it to me and were confused, if anything, about what this was all about, because they know that they pay for it through us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was the first time I saw it from one of them was from a law firm customer. I was like, what in the heck is this?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, a lot of them we're seeing a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wanson, anything on your side, or are people doing it? Have there's been there anything nefarious? I'll show you guys the article of what actually does happen momentarily. But Wanson, did you guys deal with any nefarious stuff through your clients, or no?
Not really. That client really just they notified us, and we just kind of explained to them what the situation was, and just instructed them not to interact with that email too much and block the domain. But we haven't seen it too often. Just a couple of cases here and there, but we have started seeing them.
Yeah. Okay. So let me go through. There's a really good article. I thought I had the URL, but I'll certainly send it out to you. It's really well done. It goes through exactly what's going on. So obviously this is let's go through the ruse, just so you guys know. You can explain to your clients of what's happening. So the email comes in with the calendaring link. And they talk about how the attack begins. It comes from Microsoft billing. They're really good about, hey, there's a sense of urgency here. They put an ICS file, as where we talked about, and there's a failed, and there's an issue with the subscription. There's an HTML file, etc. And this is what, if you do open it and it does come with this HTML file, this is what it looks like. Just so you guys can see it, let me expand it a little bit. Bear with me if I can do that. Okay, can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the beginning of the ruse. Obviously, they're prompted, to put in their, credit card information. It goes through, hey, there's actually, that it looks, and they do a really good job here of this. They talk about this, how it's like, preparing, to take care of your payment. And then, so it ultimately, it doesn't go through. And the other thing they've done here, and we've talked about these, we talked about the way they've done this with QuickBooks, right? Remember those guys? So they're looking, this is the SaaS living off the land, right? In this case, Shopify, they've one of the ways in which they're doing this is through Shopify domains. This is what they're looking to do. They're looking to, steal credit card creds, personal data, and email creds. Obviously, this is in essence, an access broker. If you think about it, this is the role. This is what they're looking to do, is gather data and sell that data in the ecosystem. So anyway, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that there was an article on this, and I'm happy to get it out to you. But definitely, something you want to educate your clients on. Okay, so we have our first
Eric has a question, if you have a moment.
Yeah, go ahead. What you got, Ian?
Yeah, I think part of what the article said too was that it was kind of there was question about spam filtering, and because these were being sent as a calendar invite, if they were getting past spam filters, and just because they were that, and they were going through the regular spam filtering to get blocked as a normal message would.
That's yes, and I think that the cases they are, right, Eric, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
The ones I got went right through Barracuda.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Gary. We were talking about that the other week. Yeah. So, and you wonder, right, Eric, and Gary, is this the beginning? Because it is passing through spam filters, right? You wonder, is this some type of test for the next part of an attack, right? Hey, we can pass ICS through. So what else could we put in the ICS file? You know what I'm saying? Okay, these are getting through successfully. Because Gary, as we talked about, when I responded, remember it or deleted it, I got back. It was it was an invalid email. Remember we talked about that whole thing. And so you wonder, is this the beginning of something else, right? That the threat actors are testing.
I don't. Part of me thinks that they're just looking for responses where once somebody clicks or does something, they know that they've got a live box. It's just like all the other garbage that I get, looking to sell me other things. When people are using Gmail services or Gmail accounts and all that, I think they're just looking for people who are actually live to then, to your point, go after in some form.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad, I'll keep sending my clickbait to you, Gary, and see what happens.
Knock yourself out. I've had a rule for a really long time for your email, so it's not a problem.
All right. Did you guys see this one that we had our first, I don't know, according to them, right? This is the first zero-click AI vulnerability in Copilot, right? So, not surprising, right? That we would see folks start to pick apart Copilot and see if there's vulnerabilities and things of that nature. But this one's kind of interesting because of the how dangerous it can be. In other words, the chain automatically allows attackers to exfiltrate sensitive and proprietary information without anybody's awareness. So this one was pretty concerning. And here's the the TLDR on it, that it allows these attacks automatically. And so I'll keep you all updated. I'm sure Microsoft is taking care of this. I don't know. Have you guys read about this one at all? Anybody seen or heard about this one? No.
I have not. Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have not, Enrique. Okay. Let's see. Oh, we did this one. I thought I had one other thing. No, I didn't. That is all I had for today. So I know we're ended a little bit early. Do you folks have any other things for the week?
I did have something and I totally forgot what it was.
Eric. Hey, Eric, I'm sending you a quick message.
Why do we have such a quiet bunch today?
Well, we have the group out in Dublin, and then Chip's out. So yeah, and I think it's just and it's Juneteenth. I think some people are taking off for that, Enrique. So I think it's the combination of between that big Kaseya event, a lot of the staff folks there, the holiday, and of course Chip.
Yeah.
But Chip around to stir it up.
Yeah, right. So okay, well, Anth, I think we'll wrap it at 10 minutes early here. And I'll wish everybody a fantastic week. Have a great week off next week yourself, Anthony. I know you'll be out, and wishing you all a safe one until next Thursday. Take care, everyone.
Stay safe, guys.
Hey, be safe.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Tina. Take care.